Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Patrick Ferris, and on behalf of Macmillan Learning, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's webinar. Thank you for giving up a part of your summer. I hope this is valuable to you. I hope this is helpful as you think about the fall, as you think about students coming back into the classroom, new ways to engage. Really, how do we help students? How do we help instructors be successful? How do we leverage technology to really make a difference? So the title of tonight's webinar is 7 Strategies for a Successful Student Response Experience. So if you've used the student response system in the past, if you've considered using a student response system, this webinar is for you. This will give you a chance to really start thinking creatively about ways that we could use a student response system with our students. And then if we decide to do that, what are some ways that we can be successful? What are some strategies that we can employ, and really how do we engage our students? So that's what we want to talk about today. How do we engage our students? How do we successfully use a student response system? So there are a lot of student response systems out there. There are lots to choose from. Personally, I'm a big fan of Reef Polling by iClicker, but I know that there are others out there. And so these strategies will work with whatever technology you're using, and hopefully they'll give you some things to think about. So as we dive in tonight, I'm coming to you tonight from Dallas, Texas. I'm meeting with a couple of schools here, and so I love coming back to Dallas. I'm located in the Austin area, and I just happen to be in North Dallas tonight. So I'm excited that we can use technology to really come together and share some ideas. So one of the things I want to share with you tonight is Dr. Tim Elmore. He's done some great research on students today and really young people today. He's identified them as Generation IY, and he has a website called growingleaders.com. He's done a lot of work with leading the next generation. So as you look at your screen, if you look at early Generation Y, and so these were students that were maybe born in the early 80s or born in the 80s, they've got some of these qualities that you may have seen. Now, if you've been in the classroom for a while, you've seen a shift, or you may have seen a shift in students. Maybe their thinking, their actions. There are a lot of things that are the same about students, but there are some things that have changed. So if you look at Generation IY, as Dr. Elmore has discovered, these are students that are born maybe in the 1990s. They have low empathy. He has labeled them slacktivists sometimes. Some of them want to be involved just a little. Technology, it's a part of who they are. They use technology. They've grown up with it. You may think of some of your students, some of your classes, and you may see some of these things. Dr. Elmore has also talked about the acronym EPIC, and that's one of the things that I want to share with you tonight. So as you think about your students, he uses the letters EPIC to describe a lot of the students that we see today. The E in EPIC is experiential. The P is participatory. Students today are image-rich, and they're connected. So why do we implement a student response system? How do we leverage technology to engage these EPIC students today? And that's what we're going to look at tonight. The E in EPIC is experiential. If you think about these students are looking for a guide on the side, not really a sage on the stage. They're looking for experiences. These are students that have grown up being a part of things. They like to experience things, whether in the virtual world, with technology, or in real life. They're participatory. Think about our students today. These are students that grew up with American Idol. They grew up with The Voice. They grew up being able to vote on things and really have a say. So students will support what they help to create. So if we create a classroom and an environment where students can contribute and they can participate, they're more likely to be engaged. Image rich. Dr. Elmore talks about screen agers. This is the language of the 21st century. These are students that are used to having a device with them almost at all times. They're used to looking at screens, whether it's a television, a computer, a phone, a tablet. These are students that have had technology in front of them for a long time, so they're image rich. And lastly, they're connected. Students are used to being connected to each other. They're connected with their leaders. They're able to tweet. They're able to share. They're able to snap. They see technology as vital. They see it as important as air and water. It's just part of who they are. So if we have epic students, students that are experiential, participatory, image-rich, and connected, how can we use technology to really increase the chances of us making a difference with students? I'll admit that I'm a former 8th grade middle school math teacher, so I've taught in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for about 6 years. And as I think about the students that I interacted with, I've seen a lot of students use technology. I've seen a lot of different types of technology. How we use that technology will really allow us to make a difference with our students. And so as I think about these students that are epic, and I think about where they've come from, this gives me a point of reference. And now I can start to think about, how do I create an environment for my students to participate in? How can I engage them with technology and really make a difference with where they are right now? So tonight what we want to look at are 7 tips, and there are a lot of different tips out there, but I've tried to condense this presentation tonight to 7 tips for an effective student response experience. And we'll look at each of these 7 in a little bit different light. Start with why. Set expectations. Allow for more than just attendance. How do we use the technology response system more than just taking attendance? We allow time for students to discuss, provide feedback. We use it for more than just multiple choice. We allow for an exit poll or a review, a recap of today's topic and items, and then we can extend the use beyond the classroom. So if you've used a student response system before, some of this may not be new to you, but hopefully you'll get some new ideas as you go back and start school in the fall, new ways that you can use your response system to really make a difference with students. Let's start with why. The first thing that we want to do is explain why we want to use a response system in our classes. We need to explain that to students. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. He's written a book called Start With Why. And he talks about great leaders don't just talk about the how or the what. They talk about the why. And if we can explain the why to students, why we're doing something, we're doing this to help them, to make things more efficient, more engaging, more effective for them so that they can learn and they can participate. We'll get buy-in from our students if we start with why. So some of the ways that we start with why is we share our goals for the students. What do we want to accomplish? Is it participation? Is it attendance, assessment, engagement? Are we trying to build a community? Think about some of these things that you want to create in your classroom, whether it's a class of 20 or 200 students. Maybe we want to promote engagement. We want students to come to class. We want them to be engaged while they're there. We know there's lots of competing technologies and things that we're trying to compete with. And so if we're able to use a response system to engage students, then I think we've started making progress. We can give and receive feedback with a student response system. Students can see how they've done instantly. So if that's our goal, we need to communicate that to students. Assess comprehension. I'm able to understand, what do my students understand? What learning did they have prior to coming to this class? Where are they? Conceptual understanding. If that's our goal, communicate that to your students. Let them know. Hopefully students will come to class. They'll be more engaged if they're participating and they're in that environment. Maybe we want to generate discussions and communication. And then how do we provide students with additional resources? Maybe that's the goal of our student response system. So explain that to your students and let them know. And that can be included in a lot of different ways. Second, we want to set expectations early. I like the quote, to be clear is to be kind. So if students know what to expect, there are no surprises. I've got a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old daughter, and it's very important for me to set those expectations and to communicate to them, to let them know how things are going to be so that they're not surprised. So if students know the same thing, they know what to bring with them, whether it's their phone or a clicker or a computer. If students know how to access the technology, if they know where to go in the learning management system, where do I find the information in the syllabus? Set expectations early for students so that students are able to know what is expected of them. Communicate those things. So before class, What do we do if we want to implement a student response system? We talked about this a little bit earlier. Provide clear policies in your syllabus. What will happen if their battery dies, their phone doesn't work? Talk about some of those things with your students. Provide resources. What happens if they need technical support? Where do they call? What do they do? Provide instructions. How do students access the technology? Where do they join your class? Check the infrastructure in the classroom. Maybe it's a Wi-Fi signal. Maybe it's a data plan. Maybe if it's a clicker, then you need to check those things. Some of the suggestions and some of the tips from other instructors that I've talked with, sometimes they'll drop 5 or 10 of the lowest scores so that students understand that there's going to be problems. We just have to get through them. That doesn't mean that we stop using technology altogether, but how do we adjust and how do we be flexible? And then academic integrity. Talk about that with students, why that's important, and how we can establish those things. More than just attendance. So hopefully we can use a student response system more than just students coming in and checking into class. If we do that, all we've done is simply replace a piece of paper with technology. And that doesn't do a lot. We've substituted. If you've ever heard of the SAMR model, it's SAMR. And we want to move from substitution to redefinition when we use technology. If we just use our technology for attendance, we've really just substituted the technology for something else, and we're really not getting the most out of the technology. But when we start to redefine things in our teaching, we redefine activities and things that students can do that we couldn't do before technology. Now we're starting to leverage technology and not just implement it. So during class, when you use a student response system, if you've never used one before, there's going to be challenges. We need to be flexible. We need to be able to adjust. Some of the tips and some of the strategies that I've learned over the past few years in working with instructors, some of the best practices. Plan for your questions in advance. Think about the questions that you want to ask of students. What is it that you want students to understand? But also be flexible. So if a discussion comes up and you want to ask a question on the fly, be ready to do that as well. Allow time for students to discuss things. If you're going to ask a question, ask the question, give them time to think and process, and then if you collect the results and you want to ask that question again, maybe let them share with someone next to them. Let them talk about their response. Let them convince others. Repeat the concept questions to strengthen understanding. How do we solve, or how do we work towards synthesis and evaluation so that students are creating those things? Ask a combination of both simple and complex questions. Probe misconceptions. How do we ask questions for students that may be able to help them clarify some of those misconceptions that they have? We can use real-world applications and check for knowledge. All of these things can be done during class with a student response system. I'll give you an example of one of the ways that I've seen an effective student response system recently. So one of the strategies at the University of North Texas, they've done great work in putting some presentations together. One, they ask a question, and they allow students to respond. Then they look at the results, and they allow students to discuss with their peers. And then they ask the question again, and then they review the results. So I'll give you an example of what that looks like right now. So the question that is asked is, what is an excellent breakfast food? And so the question was asked of students, and students could answer A, B, C, D, E here. Oatmeal, pizza, bacon, more bacon, or eggs. So students submitted their answers, and then the instructor put this slide up. The studies show that if we take these top 20 breakfast foods and look at them, maybe in order of most healthy to least healthy, here's what some of the science shows. So then we could ask that same question again. And when we do that, we have a chance to look at the results, and we can compare them side by side. So I'll jump in right now to what that experience might have looked like. So in that session, with those students when we talked about the breakfast foods. I don't have that question on this slide, so I'll jump in one other place so that we can see that. Thank you for your patience here. I'll go ahead and maximize so that you can see my screen. Here's the first question. The question is, what is an excellent breakfast food? And so we were able to see that some of our students selected bacon, some said more bacon, and then some said eggs. So we asked the question, we presented new information to students, and then we asked the question again, and now we were able to see that students understood that oatmeal was an excellent breakfast food. So as you think about a student response system with your students, ask the question, give students time to respond, show the result, have students talk about and discuss with each other why they submitted those things, have them try to convince each other otherwise, and then ask the question again and see, did your students understand? This is one of the ways that we could use a student response system effectively. So be creative. Use more than just multiple choice questions. Lots of student response systems allow for numeric answers, short answers where students can actually type words, math questions, a target question where students could select an image. So I've seen the periodic table presented to students, and students can use their device now to select a specific atom or element on the periodic table. And that's powerful because now we're using technology in a way to really engage students. One of the neat ways that I've seen technology used in a student response system, there was a professor teaching a human sexuality class, and she had a guest speaker. And one of the things that she did with her student response system, Reed Polling, was that she put a blank screen on her projector so that that's what was shown. And then she asked students, what questions do you have for our guest speaker? And students were able to submit these questions, their answers or questions, anonymously, so that she was able to see these questions as they came in, and then she could feed these questions to the guest speaker so the guest speaker could address whatever questions that the students had. So it allowed for students to participate without being threatened or without being shy. They were able to ask the questions and engage with the guest speaker. I thought it was a really clever way to use technology and to use a student response system. So as you think about things with your students, ask them a question and get their feedback. Ask them, what do you want to know more about, or what do you have a question about, and let them type their response, and you collect it, and now you understand where you need to go or where you may want to go next with the topics. So ask a review or a recap, or sometimes we call it an exit question. Ask students to summarize what they learned today, or ask them a question that lets us know, did they understand the key topic? Did they understand what we were really trying to accomplish? Or maybe you ask them, what questions do you have for me so that I can plan for my next class? So before they leave, allow them to answer, allow them to be engaged so they start thinking about the session they've just been in, and they start thinking about class the next time. When they start thinking about class the next time, they're more likely to come to class the next time if they know that their question might be addressed. So after class, as the instructor, I have the ability to reflect on what I've done. Did I communicate clearly? Was I effective in what I've taught? When I would teach students the quadratic formula at the end of class, I would ask myself, Patrick, did you do a good job? Did your students understand? Did they really get it? Well, technology allows me to figure that out, and it allows me to see some of the data. Did my students understand? Does the data show that they understand? Do I need to go back and reteach, or can we move on? So this allows us to really do some self-assessment and really to be self-aware. At the same time, we can extend technology beyond the classroom. So if students come to class and they participate, if they use their student response system, this is an example of brief polling. Students have access to all the questions that we've asked throughout the course of the session. So students can go back and review when they go back to their dorm, when they go to their apartment, or they go home. They can pull up those questions that we've asked. They can talk about them with their classmates. They can review. So students have opportunity to use the technology really to extend beyond the classroom. So as we wrap up tonight, there are a lot of challenges that you see every day as an instructor and in the classroom, from attendance, to students understanding, to students bringing technology, to technology working. How do we integrate with our learning management system? All of these different pieces provide lots of different challenges, but they also provide opportunities. They provide opportunities for us to make a difference with students, to let them use technology and let us use technology to engage them in what they're doing. And so I want to challenge you tonight to use technology as a tool. I'll leave you with this. This is an analogy that I use a lot of times when I work with instructors. Technology is very similar to a brick. A brick is neither good nor bad. I can take a brick and I can throw that brick through a window. Or I can take that brick and I can build a school or a hospital. It's what I do with that brick that gives it value. Technology is the same way. Technology in and of itself is neither good nor bad. But it's what we do with that technology that allows us to make a difference. Can we reach students? Can we engage them? Can we change things that we've done in our classroom to find new and creative ways to make a difference with our students? So as you think about a student response system, think about ways to use technology as a tool. Think about our EPIC students so that they can experience things, they can participate, they can use the images and the technology that they're used to every day, and they can be connected as part of this environment and part of your class. So I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you've gotten some ideas of ways to use a student response system as you look at starting school in the fall. If I can help in any way, you see my contact information on the screen, patrick.ferris@mcmillan.com. I am all over the state of Texas. I'm happy to help in any way that I can, whether that's a webinar or whether that's face-to-face. Don't hesitate to let me know. So I want to wish you a very happy summer. I hope the rest of your summer is restful and memorable, and I hope you're excited about the opportunity that a new semester presents. So thanks for being a part of our webinar tonight. I'll also send this as a recorded version, so those of you that aren't here will be able to experience it. I wish you all the best. I wish you a great fall semester, and keep up the great work. Thank you for making a difference with students.